20 years ago, you had maybe one or two big topics that companies could concentrate on and put their research on. But nowadays, you have to concentrate on so many different topics that it's really difficult to be always on top of that.
Welcome to the Swisspreneur Show, a podcast about startup stories and learnings from experienced entrepreneurs. Here's your host, Sylvan.
Alice, Lorena, a warm welcome to the Swisspreneur Show. It's a pleasure to have you here today.
Hey, thank you so much, Sylvan. We're happy to be here.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us.
Alice, you are the head of innovation at Venture, the innovation venturing by Postfinance. And you, Lorena, are the lead of miira at Venture. We're going to talk about that really nice startup or project that you're leading there in a minute. Before we talk about your initiatives, I want to know from you, Alice, you both started working for Postfinance around 2018, 2019. And what did Postfinance innovation strategy look like at that time?
It looked a bit different than today, for sure. So I started in spring 2018, and back then the team concentrated especially on entrepreneurship projects. So they wanted to promote that internal colleagues will hand in some great ideas so that they can coach them throughout the process. And they started slowly to have more and more open innovation activities, collaborating with startups, universities, and corporates. But when I came there, my main task was to build up all those external partnerships and to having Postfinance placed in this network so that startups even know that they can collaborate with us. So this was all the start.
Why was that sort of a natural shift, from the more internal focus towards the innovation ecosystem, the more open approach?
Because I think the team realized that because we are not that many people, so we can't do all the projects on our own. So we had the initiatives coming from the colleagues, as internal Postfinance colleagues, but we also had the initiatives that have been run by the innovation team itself, so by my colleagues and I. And then this shift happened because they realized, hey, you can't do everything on your own. So you need to have this diverse strategy, that you have this outside in, but this inside out view too on innovation.
Great. And you, Lorena, you already actually had a first contact with Postfinance and the innovation team during your studies in a design thinking course at the University of St. Gallen. Please tell us a bit more about that experience. How did you first get in touch with them, and what did you take away from that experience?
When I started my master program, Business Innovation, at the University of St. Gallen, I also applied for the design thinking course, and I've heard many things about the design thinking course, and a good friend of mine recommended me to do the course, but I knew it's going to be hard. So the design thinking course is a program where corporate partners reach out to students, and you have to solve their most wicked problems. Mm-hmm. And we, as a local team, existing of 4 University of St. Gallen students, had to solve a problem for Postfinance in the field of retirement. And our challenge was to redesign the pension system of Switzerland, so the needs are going to be met in the future of the Swiss people. And it was a very difficult challenge because, as you know, pension system of Switzerland, not very sexy, very complex. But we entered this program, and it was more than 10 months that we came up with 70 prototypes in the end. We iterated, tested each of them, and in the end, we came up with a final prototype that was called Desire. So Desire stands for Design Your Retirement. And Desire was it was like a retirement cockpit consisting of 2 user interfaces that enabled the users to meet their individual pension needs and life goals. And in the end of the program, we had the chance to travel to San Francisco, pre-COVID times, right. to present our final prototype in front of all the corporates and all the students. And right after, we were invited to Bern to present it in front of the management of Postfinance. And they were very happy with the end result, and they identified a huge potential They wanted to continue what we have established. So they asked two of us if we want to enter an incubation program, not as a student, but as a worker of Postfinance. And then Fabio Peterhans, my colleague, and me, we started working at Postfinance in the summer 19, I think. Yeah.
Wow, that's like a natural transition from student project to becoming an employee.
Yeah.
Wonderful. And Alice, what you also did is working for innovation means not only, building products and testing things, but also identifying trends. And you're actually even a trend scout in Silicon Valley. So you didn't move there with your own project, but you moved there to scout trends. So what did you exactly do as a trend scout?
In this project, I was sent to San Francisco on a specific project together with colleagues from Swiss Post and Swiss Mobiliar Insurance, so that we should explore the data economy and what kind of influence will startups or research projects from the US have for Europe, or especially for Switzerland. So we stayed there for 2 months. We had several company visits. So trend scouts, what they do is they scout for signals that come up in this specific area, for example, in Silicon Valley, or if you're located in China. This is the point. Basically, you can't do trend scouting from Switzerland in other countries. So you can do some research online, but it's not the same as if you were located specifically in that country. So we really dived in, as back then when I was in San Francisco, we really dived into this ecosystem, meeting startups, corporates, for sure the big techs, associations. We went to Berkeley, Stanford, meeting professors, and so on. So and with all this insight, so we put together into a white paper so that we have some kind of trend report, you could say, showing what kind of scenarios might think of could be happening with all those signals we uncovered while we were staying there.
Great. And with that experience, did you notice, or do you think that the trend cycles are getting shorter and shorter, and therefore also making your job a bit more difficult? Or was that a bit more stable than we might anticipate from the outside?
I think they're not shorter. I think what happened now is like that you have to think really parallel. I don't know if there is like this expression of parallel thinking, but the thing is that you have to consider so many different factors nowadays, because 20 years ago, you had maybe 1 or 2 big topics that companies could concentrate on and put their research on. But nowadays, you have to concentrate on so many different topics. So you can't do only DLT or blockchain. You have to do AI. You have to uncover what's the future maybe of quantum computing. You have to also have an eye on all the fintechs or insurtechs or whatever crypto startups that might come up. So you have to consider so many factors that it's really difficult to be always on top of that. So because there are some points where you really have to say, where do I want to put my effort on? Do I want to put like 10% of my effort on many different topics, or do I put 20 in this, 10% on this, and so on? We are also still a bit, I don't want to say struggling on that, but we have one big topic that we are addressing right now is digital assets, where we have some more man or women power on the topic, and the others are just being researched by individual people, for example, such as Lorena, who's somewhat also having a little team now, but still, so she was the only one pushing this project forward, so this topic and the project within forward. Or with me especially, I'm more concentrating in the data economy area. So this is a bit the point. So where do you want to put your effort in? And this got more complex nowadays, I would say, and it gets more complex even more in the future.
Absolutely. And another complex decision that you had to make, or that you actually did make in 2021, was that the Postfinance lab was rebranded to Venture. Why was that the right step to take?
As I would have taken this step already 2 or 3 years ago, because I really never liked that name, because I think for especially for non-German speakers, it was pretty weird, like PF lab, flab, or how do you really pronounce it? So the point is where we had to pronounce it was because of the Swiss Federal Intellectual Property Institute told us to do so, because we wanted to protect our label, this PF Lab label, because we started with what miira is one of the main projects. We started to go out on the market with that label. So we were putting our projects under that name. And so we thought about, hey, we might need to protect it, because then other people can use this label and put it some other products behind it. So we have to secure it. But then the IP Institute told us that it's not possible because of the ETH, because the ETH in Italian is Politecnico Federale, and they also have labs. And it's not possible that we can protect it. So we were like, oh, okay. So after 5 years of having this name PF Lab, we had to rethink. But we found a really great agency in Zurich that helped us in this renaming. And what's good now is the PF Lab before stood only for the innovation team. Mm-hmm. And now, but we were 3 teams in this future banking business unit. So we were the innovation team, the growth team, where Lorena is part of it, the ones who scale the project. And then we have the corporate venture capital team. So we have 3 teams, but PF Lab just stood for innovation. Mm-hmm. And now with venture, we found a name and an identity that fits all the 3 teams, which is really great because now we really feel all the same under that roof somehow, under the roof venture.
Yeah, it's also a very cool brand.
Oh, thank you. I'm really happy to hear that.
So talking about, the growth, the scale up, we also want to dive in a bit more on a specific project. So your project is called miira with a double I, and it's a solution to optimize your pension with just a few clicks. So Lorena, first, what problem do you exactly solve with miira?
According to the latest NZZ barometer, the sustainability of the Swiss pension system is the biggest concern of Swiss people. We all know that financial security is a rising concern, even in Switzerland. And not only the financial security, but also, keeping up with the standard that you're living is a problem. And people always start to say they save too little too late. So we wanted to tackle the problem of the missing transparency, the lacking overview, the missing incentive to start. And there's so many problems when it comes to retirement, and you cannot tackle all of them. But we kind of wanted to tackle retirement in a holistic way because there are products on the Swiss pension market that tackle some of the problems and pains, but we wanted to come up with a holistic product that also incentivizes young people to start saving and giving them an overview of their financial status.
And yeah, the earlier you start, the bigger effect you have with a potential compounding interest, right?
Exactly.
So who came up first with that idea of miira? How was the solution born, so to speak?
So as I already mentioned before, there was Desire. And Desire was a very visionary prototype with a lot of features. And it was impossible to enter the market with Desire. So our task was to come up with an MVP, a minimal viable product, that can be tested and validated with real customers very quickly. So we designed a product to make sure that our vision and our strategy meets the needs of the market. And we, as I already mentioned before, identified a lot of pains, and we knew that we cannot put all these pains or address all these pains with the MVP. So we thought, okay, what's the biggest pain we want to solve with the MVP? Mm-hmm. And it was this lack of an overview and the lack of having the financial, foresight. So we wanted to come up with a solution that tells you what your income is going to be from all the 3 pillars and what salary or what money you need to meet these needs, and if there is a pension gap between these 3 pillars and the life standard need. So we came up with this very easy and quick way to identify pension gaps, and tested this with real customers after a couple of weeks. So we entered this incubation program with the Inno architects, and we had a developer, we had a UX designer, and we developed miira, I think, in less than 2 months, and already launched it and could test and validate our hypothesis in the market.
Wow, that's super impressive. And I would like to dive in a bit more on these specific processes that you just mentioned. So you were talking about hypotheses that you were testing. What were they? What was a hypothesis that you had where you said, hey, we want to find this and that out? And how did you validate it?
So in this incubation program, it consisted of different sprints. And one sprint was 3 weeks. It was 1 week of developing. And after 1 week, we went live with a new version. And then we entered a 2-week testing phase. And after every sprint, we validated our KPIs and hypotheses. And we built our hypothesis within the team and always tested them within customer panels. So we, in this 1 week of developing, we had a lot of customer panels where we had one-on-one interviews or even discussions in a big group. And then we came up with hypothesis we wanted to test with real customers afterwards. And our specialty was to always have a lot of assumptions. And you can never trust your assumptions. So we always had to validate our assumptions. And many times we were wrong. And yeah, this was a big learning for us too.
That's part of the game. That's how you learn and get better, ideally,
Exactly.
right? How do you then test? You said you did customer interviews. At what point did you then say, hey, now we also want to see if people would actually sign up or purchase the service? When was that moment when you said, hey, now it's time for the real test? Is anybody actually putting money on the table or leaving their data for that product?
So in this first sprint phase, we went live with the first MVP, and then we reached out to our data science team at Postfinance, and we asked them if they could help us to identify Postfinance customers that match the profile of our early adopter target group.
Nice.
And they helped us, and they gave us the address of more than 1,000 Postfinance customers within a circle of Bern. So it was not in entire Switzerland we run this test, but it was more in the region of Bern. And then we sent a letter to all those customers with a QR code on it. And we wanted to see if the people scanned the QR code and even if they tested our solution. And it was very, very interesting to see then we had a conversion rate of more than 50%. So every second person scanned it and they tested it, which meant that our assumption was confirmed. So there is a need that we have to address in the market. And what was nice is that we had the addresses of those people, so we could call them afterwards and we could conduct one-on-one interviews with them and ask them, hey, why did you act like this? Why didn't you conduct a product in the end? Why did you jump off the journey at this exact screen? How could we improve our solution? So this was very valuable.
Yeah, I think there are two important points that you mentioned. First of all, the assets that Postfinance as a corporate can actually bring to the table to speed up the process of getting into the clients or potential early adopters way faster. And the other thing was really this fast learning cycle, but also combined with a high conversion rate. 50%, that's really good. That's super surprising. But it speaks for the need, for the problem that you're addressing.
Yeah.
In that regard, what was the biggest challenge for you? Because usually it's acquiring the customers, the users. That's one of the biggest challenges that many startups out there face. But for you, 50% conversion rate, that seemed like a walk in the park.
Yeah, it seems nice when I'm telling about it, but we had a lot of struggles. So I think the biggest challenge as an entrepreneur is that you always have to keep going, stay ambitious, and never give up. Because we had moments that we had to pivot our product and couldn't go live because of compliance or legal restrictions. Yeah, so I think this is a benefit when you work within a corporate. You can benefit from legal and compliance and other fields of expertise, but it's also a downside because you have to meet all the restrictions. Yeah. So but after every pivot we learned and we always found a workaround, and I think in the end we came up with a solution that was very good for our customers as well, even though it was not the solution that we imagined it would be in the beginning. But it's always pivoting, iterating, testing, and then, finding a way.
I mean, doing a pivot, that's also part of the startup process, so to speak. And at the same time, you often also face the decision, should we continue or should we just kill the idea? What let you going?
I think the inner drive of our team, we always kept going. There was never a moment where we said, okay, we should kill it. Maybe we should kill parts of the product or parts of the ideas, but we always found a way to redesign the product or to pivot and to find a workaround. And I think you should kill an idea when you realize that there's no need in the market, but we knew that the need is there and we have to address it with our product. And this was the drive we had.
Yeah.
And
the 50% conversion rate, I mean, that's a very strong number that can also keep you going, gives you a lot of motivation.
Yeah, and we had more success moments during our journey, and this always gives you motivation to keep going, especially after, after having failed.
Right.
Or having the feeling to have failed.
And if we zoom out a bit, Alicia, from your perspective, with your experience, what do you think? What can actually determine the success of a pilot? Or when should they say, hey, it was a nice test, but we should actually kill the idea?
Yeah, that's all.
That's $1 million question.
Yeah, that's a mean question because I think there is no golden rule on that. So there is not like, hey, if this and this criteria are fulfilled, then it's going to succeed or then it's going to fail. But there are some elements that you can somehow orient yourself on. Because, for example, one is for sure the timing is key. Because there are products or services that are ahead of their time. They do not have any market success. So if we see about Twint, so in the beginning, so Twint had a hard time, because they had this great vision of, hey, being this mobile payment ecosystem somehow. It's not only payment with the phone, but also then having other services connect to the app and having it provided also by other banks and so on. So timing is really key, and external influences, as we see now, the pandemic had a very positive effect for Twint in the end. Mm-hmm. But also that you involve key stakeholders, because Lorena already mentioned, because even though compliance and legal or security are not like the most desired stakeholders you want to have in the project right from the beginning, but in the end, the earlier you have them in the project, the sooner you know if you will be even able to proceed with what you're doing or with your assumptions. Because if you think about a service or a product for a bank, but then compliance comes up and says, hey, you have no chance that the Swiss regulators will say yes to that. So yeah, you have no chance for that. Yeah, you can try a pivot, but try to fight against this legal framework, but in the end, you don't have that much chance. So it's really important to have those key stakeholders right on board from beginning. Another crucial aspect is to have this great vision. So to think big is good, but you have to start small. So I think Lorena also explained it very nicely with the miira projects, because they said desire would have been too large to implement in one-to-one. It would have taken maybe years to develop the entire solution. And then you lose the momentum for the market, because you realize, hey, the market is ready now, needs something now. And then if you use up 2 or 3 years developing something, you use that timing. So it's really key to also have this big vision, but these small steps to realize, how do I want to validate each assumption? How do I proceed with my prototypes? With whom will I test them? Mm-hmm. And so on. I think this is something that is fundamental to your thinking in the way you approach, and especially never fall in love with a prototype or with your first idea, because because the first idea will never make it in the end. So I never heard of somebody whose first idea and their first prototype were the winning project and the ones who got funding. So it was never like that. Yeah. So you really have to be open also to kill your own children somehow. I hate that expression. Fortunately, I don't have kids, because otherwise I would say things like that. But you have to be really opportunistic, and sometimes you have to take some decisions that are maybe not good for the company itself, but will help them to maybe reach a state where they can build the next S curve in their model. So I think this is also something that as an innovation team, that you need to be able to do that and even kill not only the chain, but also kill your prototypes. Just say, hey, sorry, that won't ever work. Either pivot or die. So
fair point. Lorena, you mentioned the customer need. That feedback was crucial to kept you going in the early days. Then later down the road, it's usually much more of a business model, a revenue, or in general traction question. So you see, hey, there are users coming in, there's revenue coming in. What role does that play for you, and how do you also make money with the product? Is that something that also gives you a headache sometimes?
So after I think 10 months, Valoo approached us, and they wanted to start a corporation with us, and they wanted to integrate our product in their comparison platform. And this was, I think, the first big success moment for our team. And I don't know, we didn't talk about monetizing miira so far, but we were very glad that we had some traffic and we had some reach with the corporation, with Valoo. And after the months of this corporation, we got the question: so how do you make money? How do you the leads that you're going to give the partners, are they expensive? How much does a lead cost? And we said, yeah, so far we are still in the baby shoes, and we have never ever charged somebody or charged a partner for a lead. So this is a very difficult question, because we are very I don't know how to say, early stage still. So if we are going to reach out to our partner and say, hey, for every lead now you have to pay, I think most of the partners would say, okay, then take me off the platform, I'm not going to pay. And then we spent a lot of hours this summer to come up with a right business model for miira. And we did a lot of testing. And this is exactly the question you asked me, we asked ourselves. So what is the business model? And then we realized that it's probably never gonna be profitable for miira to stay a comparison platform. And then we decided to make a huge pivot. And this is when a private bank from Zurich, a little private bank, called me in the summer, and they're focusing on impact investing. And they called me and said, hey, we are missing a really sustainable 3A solution on the Swiss pension market. And we heard about you, and we want to cooperate with you. And this was in the exact time when we were overthinking miira and overthinking our business model, and said, hey, we have to finally make some money with miira. And now this partner, or this potential partner, approached us. And then we said, okay, let's stay integrated in Valoo. Let's see how their strategies discussion are gonna result, because they said that they maybe could finance our innovation next year. But we didn't want to wait for Valoo, so we decided, okay, we want to pivot, and we want to pursue a new vision with this new partner. And this is exactly where miira is now. And we have business model ideas. Now we know how we can make money. Now we see that it could be profitable. And it's a very difficult question, because first you have a lot of months or even years where you put a lot of money into a project, and it never it
never monetizes.
It never
right?
monetizes. And even if it monetizes, it takes so long until you are break even. So this was a huge problem. And we felt the pressure of the team as well. So we put a lot of money into miira, 1.5 years now, and we didn't see any money. And then Valoo came to us and said, okay, we are going to finance some of the innovation costs, we're going to finance the licensing costs, and we're going to finance some of the developing costs. And this was like the first moment in the history of miira when we earned money. And yesterday, I think it was yesterday, we had a call with the Value team, and they said that they continue their cooperation and they're ready to pay the same amount again. Perfect. But this is like the old miira, and we want to still be integrated in the Value platform, but now we want to focus on our new vision with this partner. And we see great potential there when it comes to monetizing as well.
Mm-hmm. It's very interesting. So you certainly offer a free service that is adding value to the people that want to better understand their future situation when they eventually retire one day. But at the same time, you can't really monetize that directly, but now you start offering a product around that is tailored to those people, and then you can actually make some money on top of that. That's a nice move.
Yeah, so partners are willing to pay when they see, it's not an innovation project anymore. We always had the character of being an MVP, but the people or the partner that we integrated in our platform, they wanted to see that we are a product, that we don't rely on Value, for example, to have the reach and the traffic. And we talked with Value 2 days ago that we have to monetize it either way next year. So I think these discussions are going to take place by the beginning of next year, because we have to monetize it. And when some partners don't want to be a miira anymore, then it's their loss.
Absolutely. So I think what we learned from sharing your very insightful experience is that sometimes success and failure, they are quite close to each other, and it's not always clear which way you're going. So maybe you then do a pivot if you learn that something's not working. So Alice, you recently even launched 2 books on those topics, a success book and the failure book. Can you talk a bit more about why you did that?
Yes, because it was just a crazy idea 3 years ago, because we started with the fail book. You always start with failing, sure. So one of our colleagues back then had to set up an Excel file for one of our management board executives where we had to list every innovation project we ever did and where at which in which innovation phase it failed. So he had to put together this Excel file. I don't know how many weeks he has been working on that, going through all the old files and anything. And then out of a sudden we were discussing, and then the idea came up, hey, how about putting those cases into a book? And so, hey, we never asked for permission, so we just did it. So with my design background, I saw I could put together a book in InDesign. And then so over a couple of weekends just before Christmas, we did it. We let it print. So we made 500 copies. And then we started giving it out to our friends, also to our innovation friends in the network. And we even gave it as a Christmas present to our management board executives, so to all. They got it as a Christmas present. And we thought like, hey, maybe now soon somebody from communication or so or branding will come to us and say, hey, you have to get this book out of the way, because it's not possible that you put it as release a book and in the back in the impressum there's Postfinance written in it. So, but there's something else happened, because then our HR ordered 2,000 books because they wanted that every employee at Postfinance gets a fail book for the to learn about failing and how to learn out of failure, and to promote like a new culture where people are not afraid of taking risks, where risk is okay. As I don't want to say that every department should take risks. For example, security, legal, compliance, and so on.
Of course, yeah.
Oh, the internal audit department, for example. But all the others, maybe yes. So we printed those books, and then out of a sudden, but then I remember people came to us and said, hey, the book is so cool, we love it, but yeah, everybody can fail. But when does your success book come out? And then I remember me and Matthias, the head of the venture teams. So we were discussing like, oh yes, maybe we have to do a success book. And then, but then we were like, hey, oh my God, but the success book is going to be really thin, because the fail book. So we had some fails. So from our, I don't know how many projects there were, I think 84 projects. From those, we have like 73 that failed, or 74. So we were like, yeah, but then it's going to be just a little booklet. But then we started off anyhow, so already designed the cover. And I said back then, I knew it has to be golden. the book needs to have a golden cover. So I did like a mock-up, I remember, and then we started off. We put together a questionnaire, and then we said like, come on, let's just spread this questionnaire around our network. So we asked people if they want to participate, some innovation leaders and other thought leaders. And then we just got rolling, and it was rolling for 2 years, so for 1.5 years, because we were asking so many people. In the beginning, we were like 30, 40. Then we said, okay, we have to stop. But then we stopped at 72. We asked 72 experts. So the book became thicker than the failed book in the end. So because we were presenting our 9 success stories, one out of it is also miira. And for example, Twint or our car insurance. But then also the views of those 72 experts, which is pretty amazing. Even though I read it so many times, I can't read it anymore because for the proofreading and to check if everything is okay, I had to not only me, some of my colleagues also had to read it too many times. And yeah, but we're still really proud that we could put together this nice collection of innovation know-how into one golden book.
Yeah, that's amazing. And of course, everybody's now interested to hear from your experience what differentiates the successful cases from the failure cases.
But a good differentiator is for sure the team, because sometimes some cases fail because the wrong people work together, or maybe sometimes the team changes. For example, the one who was the person who was pushing the initiative, who was the one creating the idea, who was pushing things forward, left the company or left for something else, and then somebody else took over. This sometimes could work out because we see with startups, sometimes it happens at the beginning they have a specific CEO as a founder CEO, and then somehow the board of directors decides, hey, maybe we need somebody else as the CEO, maybe to push things forward and so on. But there, I think the team is like one thing, and then another thing is like having having a product that not only meets current or future demands, but also shows how you make money with it. And I think this is the issue, because you can have the best innovation project, it's so cool, people want it, but people are not willing to pay for it. So then it's not good. So
exactly.
Then you can just skip it or do a pivot or whatever, but that you have to rethink it. And I think last but not least, it has to solve a problem in the end. It's not only have to solve the need, but also the problem. And it has to be very, depending on what the product is, but especially financial products have to be really unobtrusive and be just part of your journey without disturbing you in doing something. Because I think banking is necessary. So the process itself, but banks are not. And I think the products also, in the way how they have been designed, not necessary as they will, because I think the future will show that with all those great technologies, that even those complicated things can be redesigned in a much better way than people thought or designed it back in the days. Yeah.
Amazing. And I think it really it really emphasizes the core statements that you both made. So first of all, failure is part of the process. And also it's sometimes much closer to success than you might think. So 1 or 2 more pivots, and from what you think will not work, you actually turn the case around and say, oh, this is a perfect fit. And I think that's a really important key takeaway, also mindset-wise, to not forget. Now, most important question, where can people actually get the book? Or the books, better said.
Better said, the books, because you can buy it as a bundle. So you can buy it for sure, just the one or the other book. But we sell it through our shop on shop.vntr.ch, also like venture.ch, and through our publisher, Vater and Vater in Bern. Yes. And I saw it even in some bookstores, because some of our colleagues also posted a picture, but I think it was in Bern in some bookstore. Okay. Since we are located in Zurich, we don't know.
More than Füssli,
maybe. No, I don't know.
Maybe it's there and you haven't seen it yet.
But you can order it them, yeah.
Fantastic. So now we talked about your learnings, also about the current projects and the way that you've come so far. Of course, we're also very much interested about the future and what it brings. So first for you, Lorena, what have you planned? What's next for miira?
So as I already mentioned, we started this cooperation with this little bank from Zurich. We just had a few workshops with them, and next week we're going to have a framing day with the inner architect again, because we're going into a other boost camp in January or February next year, where we want to develop our first MVP. We have to come up with a new name. Maybe, Alice, you have a good idea. And we are planning to launch our first MVP in Q1 next year. So we are focusing all our resources on this new pivot now.
So you're keeping busy. You're certainly not going to get bored.
No, never.
Alicia, on the other hand, I also wonder, what trends do you see on the horizon that will become more important next year for you?
I think some of the key topics on my table for sure will be the whole concept of venture clienting. It's like an expression I heard like so many times in the past 2 months, and before I never had heard of it. So like to professionalize the process of how we collaborate with startups, so that we really have the challenges of the business unit, somehow how we can connect them to the startups that solve the perfect, that solve like this issue, and then also to explore more this whole ecosystem thinking. In the end, how could we start as banks also designing ecosystems where we are not, in the end, will be the orchestrator, because sometimes you have to be open, because the bigger player not always have to be the orchestrator in the end. And another really hot topic that we're discussing is the whole idea of venture building. Because how about when innovation teams stop creating products that you have to spin into the company, and more think right from the beginning as a startup, and how you find funding as outside of your company and how you can spin it out.
Oh, certainly. You're also keeping busy.
Yeah, I will.
So to wrap up today's episode, we prepared some rapid fire questions for you. And I'm going to start with you, Lorena. Ask for permission or ask for forgiveness?
Ask for forgiveness.
That's a clear choice for you.
Yeah.
Cool. For you, Alice, jump on a trend immediately or wait to see how things play out?
I can't decide. I think it's both, because it always depends. I have to be a lawyer, even though I'm not a lawyer, but it depends really on the situation. So, because if you wait to jump on, then you're the late follower. And if you're too early, it can be that you're the innovator to create something, but it could be that somebody else exploits it better than you did. So 50-50 chance.
Fair point. Lorena, do you take decisions in 5 minutes, 5 hours, or 5 days?
Something in between 5 hours and 5 minutes.
Okay. Alice, when was the last time that you changed your mind on something?
This morning.
So all the time, basically.
Yeah, I think, yeah, this is something, maybe this is some weak, no, it's not a weakness, but it's something I do. So I have some strict, when I decide on something, but I'm also pretty flexible in changing what I'm thinking in some cases. So you have to be.
Yeah, I mean, if there are new information that you didn't have before, it's totally fair.
Exactly. Or you, after 24 hours, you realize, oh, maybe I was too stupid yesterday to decide on that. Now
Sure.
I have more facts that make this decision easier. Yeah.
And a final question to both of you. First for you, Lorena, what startup would you like to have co-founded?
Many startups, but if I have to come up with one startup, it's probably Doconomy. It's a Swedish impact tech startup that focuses on climate change. So they developed an ecosystem with measures and tools to educate individuals and corporates to reduce the CO2 footprint.
Very
and
nice
I just
one.
looked into the startup recently because of another project I'm working on, the Swiss Climate Challenge. And I was very fascinated by what they're doing and how fast they grew.
Amazing. And what startup is it for you, Alice?
I think it's Airbnb, because they changed how we make vacations. So, and they made it possible and more affordable for everybody. I think this is something that if I could have, I would have. But I think back then I wouldn't have sensed that they would be so successful. I would have said,
Sure.
hey, this is such a silly idea, forget about it.
Of course, there's always a lot of skepticism at the
Exactly.
beginning. Wonderful. Lorena, Alicia, thank you so much for stopping by. Lots of success with whatever you'll be tackling next year and beyond. And hope to see you here again very soon. Take care.
Yeah,
Thank you
thanks.
so much.
You too. Stay happy.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, you can support us by rating our show on Apple Podcasts. This way, we can reach an ever-growing number of aspiring entrepreneurs.